Welcome to the Love Dog Podcast. I'm your co-host, Raina Butcher, here with our lovely host, Dr. Sarah Hensley.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey. We are really cozied up today, guys. We decided to wear our PJs.
We did. We're in our Cozy Earth pajamas because we love Cozy Earth.
That's right. This just shows you how much we love our sponsor, Cozy Earth. We decided to actually wear our pajamas in the studio today.
We did.
Plus, it's cold outside.
It is so freezing in Kentucky. It was 19 degrees when we left.
Yeah.
So I have my beanie on too.
Yeah.
And we have blankets. You might not be seeing us if you're listening.
Actually,
on
we might
platform.
make this a trend because it just feels really nice and cozy. And so, with that said, we want to thank our sponsor, Cozy Earth.
Yes.
We love you. If you are looking for the perfect gift this Christmas, please visit cozyearth.com. Mention promo code LOVEDOC at checkout for 40% off. I actually just bought these PJs.
Very cute.
Look at them. I know y'all can't hear them. But they
have animals on them.
They're the woodland creature PJs.
Which was so perfect for you. When I saw those on the website, I almost sent them to you, but I was like, I know she'll find them.
Yeah, I found them and I bought them. Yeah, when you were last week when we were talking about it and you were like, yeah, I was like, I got the woodland creature. She was like, I knew you were going to buy them. I'm like, oh, you know I was going to buy them. I deprived myself of nothing.
I put these on and I do not take them off like
I know.
sometimes all weekend.
Yeah.
Because they're just so dang soft.
They are. And
it's the bamboo from Viscus. Whatever, however they do it. I don't know how they work their magic, but they are so luxurious, so comfortable. The viscous bamboo is temperature regulating. Their sheets are amazing.
Sheets are amazing. You want to talk about a good gift. Like,
it is a really, really quality gift.
Hopefully Josh's mom doesn't listen to this episode, but that's what we got her and her husband for Christmas. Because, what do you give a parent who has everything? You give them Cozy Earth sheets.
Yes.
Like, it is the perfect gift.
A good set of sheets or a really nice, like, luxurious set of pajamas is great. Because even if people don't, like, sleep in the long sleeve and long pants, wearing them around the house when you're lounging.
So nice.
Man.
And their sheets have a 10-year warranty.
Which is great.
And they have, like, you can try them out for like 6 months and then send them back if you don't like them.
Dang.
Yeah.
Way to go, Cozy Earth.
I know. They really treat you well. Plus, if you go to their website and make a purchase and then fill out their post-purchase survey, they send you a free pair of Cozy Earth socks. But you have to fill out the survey, so make sure you do that because they'll send you an email. And of course, once you visit them, mention the Love Doc with promo code LOVEDOC and receive 40% off. Thank you, Cozy Earth.
For sure.
So, episode 31 today, and it is titled Forgiving the Unforgivable.
Yes.
This one's going to be heavy. I'm kind of glad we're in our PJs.
I know. Right. And I was just thinking about all of this. Because when we did the last couple of episodes, That's My Life, which That's My Life 1 has dropped. Part 2 hasn't dropped yet, so stay tuned.
Next week.
I was talking about the situation where, my ex-husband had died and he switched the life insurance policy over to a new wife who had been married to for like 6 weeks. And, my reasons for talking about this is definitely not to just try to throw her under the bus.
Sure.
I mean, people can figure out who she is, and I hope that they don't. I hope they leave her alone because she's remarried now, and she seems to be happy and stable. And
yeah, and I think
she
she's
went
a good
through
person.
a lot of trauma when my ex died. Obviously, I know she really did love him. She just didn't know what she had gotten herself into, right? Not giving the life insurance to my kids was not a move I would have made. It's so funny. My husband and I are watching the show Weeds. I'd never seen it before. And we just picked a series. Like, we had not seen it. And so she totally Nancy Botwin'd me.
Oh, is that part of the show?
It's part of the show.
I'm gonna have to watch it now just to know so I know the reference.
Anyway, and Donald was cracking up. He's like, you got Nancy Botwin'd. And I was so mad.
I remember.
I was like raging mad because I had paid into that policy for 10 years.
Well, and obviously you want to protect your children.
That's what it was all for.
Yeah.
And right before he went to rehab, which was in March and he died in September, I asked him specifically, you still have that policy on you, right? It's in your name. It's on you. I'm the beneficiary, right? Because I'm worried about you, Jer.
Why do you think he would have switched it over? Was it a slap in the face?
Spite. Because I don't think he really thought he thought he was bulletproof.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I don't think
obviously he didn't
nobody
know.
ever really thinks they're going to die.
No.
You know, unless somebody tells you you're dying and like you're not,
Yeah.
like it's fine. You're dying,
Right.
right? Nobody thinks they're just going to wake up one day. Like when he woke up that day, he had no idea he was going to die,
Right.
which is the weird part, right? It's the weird part to wrap your head around.
Death is hard to wrap your head around.
It is. It so is. And it just, the grief and the complexity of the situation that I'm in, where this person, yes, was abusive, but also he was a human and there were good things about him.
And the
too.
father of your children.
And the father of my children, which was the most difficult decision to make, to talk about what's happened to me. But also, how can I help people if I don't let them know that I've been through this?
Right.
Right? You know, I have to be able to tell people who are in this situation, you can get out. You can get out.
Yeah,
you
because
can.
I did it. Well, and that's what I always tell a lot of people that call, you know, asking about your services, asking, you know, what sets you apart. And I always say that I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm like, she's a triple threat. I'm like, because she has the education, she has the research experience, but on top of that, she has the real life experience that not everybody has, where she has literally seen the depths of hell and then pulled herself out.
Yeah.
I was like, and then on top of that, she's a teacher.
Yeah.
So you know how to teach. And again, that's a gift.
Thank
Teaching
you,
is a
friend.
gift. Like not everybody has that gift, but you it's what makes you dynamic. It's what makes your content dynamic, is that you're able to take this really complex information, break it down for people to say, "Oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense," you know? And then in turn it gives people hope.
Yeah,
You
I
give
think
so
people
many
really
people
like
hope.
a good comeback story.
Yeah.
You know, because it does give people hope. And what I want to tell people, like, if this is your year, and I will say a cuss word, if this is your year where you have been shit on over and over and over and over again, just know that your life can change so freaking drastically in a year.
Yeah.
This time next year, you could be a whole different person with a whole
right.
different set of circumstances where your life just kicks ass.
Yeah. But it starts with forgiveness, right?
Yes, it does.
And sometimes it starts with forgiving the unforgivable.
It does. And it is of my faith, because it comes from Jesus. The words come from Jesus, that we are required to forgive. But a lot of people think forgiveness means no boundaries. And so I'll say, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Love is unconditional. Being in relationship with someone is conditional. It is. It has to be, or else you may not be safe in that relationship.
Right.
I mean, relationships, especially in domestic violence or abusive situations, can kill you. So yes, they are conditional, right? And we have, when we're insecurely attached, we have kind of two groups of people. We have the group that wants to run at the slightest thing. Like I hear all the time. I'd say I have a very distinct group of clientele who have had a 4 to 6 month relationship with a DA, and then they have their first real conflict and they get completely ghosted by this person that they felt deeply and intimately connected to.
Yeah, that's so rough.
And they are so heartbroken.
Sure.
They feel like the wool was just pulled over their eyes. How could they do that? How could they just completely ghost me? And then I have, you know, people that are, of course, on the more anxious side of the spectrum who stay through intolerable circumstances.
Yeah.
I had somebody, you know, a while back that said, my partner's cheated on me for 20 years. What do I do? I said, you leave.
Yeah, you get out.
You leave.
Because
And
how is that going to, if that's been going on that long, that's never going to change.
it's never going to change. I straight up told this person, you are no longer a victim of this. You are a volunteer for it. You are an autonomous human being.
Yeah.
And I know that abusers trap you.
They do. It's
I know
hard to
they
get out.
trap you. I know that they isolate you. I know that they financially abuse you. I understand all of these things. But there are resources. There are people that will help you get out. You have to get out.
And I got an email the other day from, I don't know if she's a client, but I have no idea why she specifically emailed me or even how she got my email. But it was very obvious that she was in an abusive situation. And maybe she emailed me because she heard something on the podcast about me talking about my situation with my ex and being in a small town. and feeling like there was all this witness value on top of the fact of just like going up against City Hall, right? Like in my situation, it felt like I was all alone on this island and the whole town and the whole family was sort of against me. And she was just like, I need some advice. What do I do? Like what services do you guys have? And I was like, well, it sounds like you're in an abusive situation, first off, based on what you're telling me. And I can just go ahead and warn you that this shit's going to get worse before it gets better.
Every abuse cycle gets worse. Yes. Which is why when I reunited with my ex after I legally divorced him, right? This is when I was at my sickest mentally and physically. Well, not physically, but for sure near the end of my near nervous breakdown level.
Yeah.
The second round when it didn't go well
was even worse.
Was the worst abuse that had ever happened.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it was. The trajectory of how things happened with my ex, it was like every single time that I would go back and felt like it would get better, it actually got worse. Now, maybe at first it would get better
because that's how the love bombing stage.
Right. That's how he would hoover me back in.
That's right.
And then lo and behold, something would happen and it would get worse.
Right. So, as I mentioned in, the last couple of podcasts, it was two parts. My life ended up taking up two parts. I talked a lot about how, I did hold some bitterness, right? It's like I felt like he selfishly chose his addictions. And I know addiction is a disease. I get that. But we're not talking about somebody who didn't have any resources or people that loved him or parents that couldn't pay for rehab.
Right.
He had all that. System. He had a humongous support system and everything in the world going for him. And I know I've never been addicted to drugs or alcohol. So I can't say that I understand it because clearly I don't.
Yeah.
Clearly I don't.
Yeah, because sometimes all the resources in the world, that's why I've always said the only way to heal addiction is through God. He's the only source.
Right. And I do think he tried some of that. But
I feel like he was on that path.
He was on that path. And I'll thank his ex-wife for that. Yeah. His newly, his new wife.
Yeah.
Who is now his ex-wife.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not the right way to say that.
You're right.
His widow.
Yeah, his widow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you also considered a widow?
No. Because we were divorced when he died.
Yeah.
I'm not a widow. Anyhow, so I had a lot of bitterness over the abuse of the marriage, of his alcoholism. But the bitterness, it absolutely does nothing but hurt you. It does nothing but hurt you. I was going
to say, do you think it eventually,
It serves no purpose. And that's because people confuse forgiveness with laxing boundaries and allowing the relationship to continue. One thing that God spoken to me a long time ago when I was in my healing journey from all this, after my ex had died, was, and I don't know how to put this into words, but just that it doesn't serve you. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't bring you any peace. The bitterness is an issue with the fact that you are afraid that if you forgive, you're going to be harmed again.
Yeah.
Right. Or that you have given them permission or that you have said, hey, what you did didn't matter. It was okay. And that's not true.
Yeah.
It's not that what they did didn't matter or didn't hurt you. It just says that I'm going to lay down my sword about it. I'm not going to fight about it anymore. I'm not going to hold resentment towards you, which resentment is a huge issue in my clients that I see. And so many people ask me about how to forgive.
And that was going to be my next question. Because a lot of times people, they don't realize that they are holding on to this bitterness. Like, again, speaking about my mom, she's the perfect example. Like, she lived the majority of her life just in this state of constant bitterness. But I don't know if she ever really recognized it or acknowledged it.
Yeah. Most people don't.
Yeah. I think it's what led to her death.
Yeah. Well, there's actual research on that. Yeah. So, yes, it does put you at higher risk of stroke, heart attack, cancer, etc.
Yeah.
Specifically bitterness.
I believe it.
As well as risk for chronic pain.
I believe
like neuroplastic pain is most associated with anger. and I know we've talked about that on the podcast. The only way I know how to forgive the unforgivable, which I felt like some of the things that happened to me, and some of the things that happened to me are so bad and so devastating that I choose not to share them. You know what some of those things are.
Yeah. And I have some too.
Yeah, I know. And those things stay between us.
Yeah.
But, and for my kids' sake.
Right.
If you would have asked me, 5 years ago, if I would have forgiven, I'd been like, hell no, he doesn't deserve to be forgiven when he was still alive. And it is probably easier after someone's gone to forgive them.
Oh, for sure. My mom
because
used
they're
to
not
say,
still hurting you.
Yeah, my mom used to say, because my parents divorced after 28 years of marriage, she used to say, and I never really understood until I got older, was that she would have rather my dad died because then it would have been easier on her.
Yeah. And there is something called the death positivity bias where I may have mentioned this. Sometimes I don't know what I've said on the pod and what I've said.
You can say it again.
On my videos and stuff, because I'm like, this is
again.
familiar territory.
Yeah.
The death positivity bias suggests that we view people more favorably after they're dead.
Yeah.
Right. And so there could be some of that psychologically, but I do know that God changed my heart around him. Now, does that mean that I am going to hold back in my truth of what I've experienced and what he put me through? No, because I truly believe my faith tells me he's in heaven and he doesn't care.
Right.
He is not up in heaven looking down and being like,
how dare
you're talking about me. How dare you talk about me?
Right.
No, the veil has been lifted for him. He is in paradise. He is in glory. He is absolved of his sin. He was a believer.
Right.
And I think that he would want me, because it's demonic oppression, in my opinion. Yes. You want to call it psychological, pathology, narcissistic personality disorder, all of those things, that's fine. But my personal faith tells me that all of those things underneath that is demonic.
Yeah.
Right? It's all of the demonic. It is not, there's different layers, right? Like the spiritual layer of it is the demonic oppression.
Right.
It manifests as these psychological outcomes that psychology as a science has studied and termed these things. But to me, it's demonic oppression.
Yeah.
So, and when people are demonically oppressed, they don't know that they're aligning with the enemy. They do not know. It's not possession. You're not possessed by the devil, but you are oppressed.
Right.
The devil is speaking to you to your own thoughts, pushing you into sin, and you believe it and you align with it, and therefore you are using your free will, which God does not interrupt, to choose it, right? And so the only way that I ever came around to actually full forgiveness, like when I talk about these, and I know that it's forgiveness because when I talk about it, I don't really feel anything except for sadness and grief, which are appropriate emotions.
Sure.
I don't feel any anger or rage or resentment. Maybe micro moments, but then I correct it with God, right? I'm like, no, that's the devil. I rebuke that in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
It's just like last week when I was like, I want to say the name of the mistress.
Yeah.
There was one dominant mistress in my husband's life. And there was a hot second there on the pod where I was like, wanted to say her name because,
I get it.
she wrecked my life. Well, he did too.
Yeah.
But she participated in wrecking my life.
I
without a care in the world. And so there's those fleeting moments where there's that like, and then I'm like, no, but God.
Yeah.
But Jesus died.
And I still have some jealousy, that lives in my, and it's so interesting because I think like I'm so happily married, but then I can think back. I won't name the mistress. Even though my ex and I weren't married, but he put me in a love triangle for like 3 years with the same girl. And it wasn't that long ago that I was showing her to you on social media, and she's gorgeous. Like she is a beautiful girl, but I can't help but like have those moments. And again, like I don't like, it's not because I'm still in love with my ex, but it's just because it brings things up for me from that time period.
It's just unprocessed emotion.
Right. And so I'll look at her and I'll be like,
yeah. She's spiritually, it's the devil. Right. I mean, jealousy and envy is a principality of the enemy.
But I think it really stems from, because we're talking about forgiveness, obviously. I just think it stems from just not being able to fully forgive. Not yet. I'm still working through it.
Yeah,
I'm still working through it.
It's not easy.
And like I can even acknowledge, like when I think about her, like, come on. She was a 19-year-old girl.
Yeah, she was
no
clue what
baby.
she was getting into.
And he was like 36.
Shame on him.
I know. Grody.
No, I shouldn't say that phrase.
How grody is that?
I shouldn't say that phrase.
No, I'll say
in
it.
the name of Jesus.
I'll say it.
Shame.
I'll say it. Shame on him.
Yeah, but
I still struggle
weird.
though.
It is weird.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't illegal, but it was weird, right? It was weird.
There was like a 16, 17. Let's put it this way. At that time, my son was little. There was less of an age difference between her and John Paul than there was between her and Paul.
That's creepy.
That's weird.
So he was being very creepy and weird.
Yeah. And, I mean, I just think this is how I try to think about it in terms of her point of view. She was put through the ringer too.
Yeah.
She was put through so much. And
yeah, because he was lying to her just like he was lying to you.
I mean, he flip-flopped back and forth between us for 3 years. 3 years. And this girl, like, this was probably like one of her first love experiences.
Yeah.
And so I try to have, because I think when you start to have empathy for people, then it's easier to forgive.
Yeah.
Because I've done that with my ex too. I've had to look at him from this different scope, right? Not just based on my own feelings. I've had to look at it from his own pain.
Yeah.
And then it's been easier to forgive.
Yeah. Well, what worked for me was, one, God says there's no exception to this rule. So there was no, but God, but he did this. And it's like, but Jesus was tortured and died for you, and beaten and spit on and shamed and ostracized and had his body broken. And if you ever read into what a crucifixion is like, you won't be able to stomach it.
Yeah.
You can't even, you'll have to close the book.
Yeah.
If you can, then maybe you're some kind of sociopath.
It's the most painful death.
Yeah. And so he did that for all of humanity. Right? So if I can't forgive, I must not really understand what the gift of Christ's crucifixion actually meant. Right? And Jesus said forgiveness is 70 times 7, which it's not actually just 70 times 7. He's speaking, parabolically to say that is endless.
Right.
You forgive endless amount of times. Infinite forgiveness. But again, forgiveness does not mean you go back to the relationship or that you allow that person to continue to harm you. Sometimes we have to love people from afar. And I think one of the most profound things that Be in Health Ministries taught me, which starting with forgiveness set the stage for my healing. It set the stage because bitterness and anger and resentment and all of that, it's so hard on the nervous system that you cannot regulate when you have it. You can't, because you are in fight or flight. You're in a fight response when you're angry, right? And so your nervous system will never be regulated and relaxed, and you will never experience the full consciousness that your brain is capable of. You will never experience true felt safety.
Yeah, it's a real block.
If you don't do this. It's the number one block to people, I would say, healing their attachment that I see, is that Paul talks about in the Bible that we're separate from our sin. So God created us to be perfect in his image. He created us for perfection. Satan came into the picture. We used our free will to align with Satan. I mean, everybody knows the Adam and Eve story, right? And the world fell. The world fell to sin. And so the enemy is alive and well and rules the ruler of the earth. God is the ruler of the heavenly space. Satan is the ruler of the earth. And so we have to understand that we got to get the log out of our own eye, first of all. And then we have to, at the end of the day, we've got to lay down the swords. Because you're fighting nobody on the other side anymore at some point, especially if you've left the relationship and you're not in the relationship. If you are in a relationship where someone is continually hurting you over and over and over and over and over and over again, then the question needs to move from how do I get my partner to why am I tolerating this? What is going on with me where I am continuing to return to this over and over again? So they're asking themselves the wrong question. And I know it's not the question that they want to ask.
I know.
It's the painful question. It's the one where they have to be accountable. And it sucks because there is an accountability element in the abuse. And I get it. I was fully psychologically manipulated. I was in a strong as hell trauma bond. I was physically abused. I was isolated. I had money taken from me. I had all the things.
You flat broke.
All the things. And I still got out.
Yep.
And it may have taken me, trust me, one too many times. The first time he put his hands on me should have been the last time.
Yeah.
And I forgive myself and I forgive him.
Wow. Talking about forgiveness, forgiving yourself is a big piece.
It is a big
really
piece.
big piece.
It is a big piece because we talk about this a lot. And when Dana was on the podcast, Dana Doswell, about how much internal shame we hold, and insecure attachments hold so much shame. It's triggered by different things depending upon the attachment style, but so much shame. And I think even narcissism is built to protect yourself against unrelenting shame, according to the most adopted theories or accepted theories. So if you take that theory, if we're talking on a psychological level, if we step out of the spiritual space and talk in the psychological space, my ex must have had so much internalized shame as a young child that he built a fake personality that was built upon being grandiose, aggressive, and dominating to get what he wanted out of life, which was the mechanism he felt he had to build somewhere in his subconscious to be safe in this world.
Yeah. Same with my ex. And he's still that way. Actually, my ex needs to listen to this episode. I don't normally say that, but he has a lot of unforgiveness.
My ex also did a lot of steroids.
So did mine.
Which enlarges the amygdala.
Can we just acknowledge the uncanny, like, our lives are so, this is what I was telling Josh the other day.
So parallel.
It is freaking insane how parallel our lives
We were
have
meant
been.
to be best friends.
I know. And we were meant to do this.
We were meant to do this.
Right.
I tried to get you to do this years and years ago. And you're like,
I'm too scared. I'm too scared. Well, I pulled the trigger. It just took me getting a really, really great partner, honestly. I give him a lot of credit because then I felt
me too.
Just better.
I didn't start this business until after I met Donald.
Yeah.
He was the one that was like, you can do this.
Yes. It's amazing how a great partner, how brave they make you.
They make you so brave because you have a soft place to land. You have a place to fall.
Yeah.
If you fail, you have somebody that's going to go, you know what?
It's okay.
Just because you this fail doesn't mean you're a failure.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is nobody that is my bigger cheerleader than Donald.
Josh neither. I mean, he is just like, you girls are rocking it. Keep going.
Yep, you're so awesome.
Yeah,
You're
I'll
so
read
good
some
at
of
what
the
you do.
emails and some of the messages to him. And he was like, this is so amazing, honey. I'm so proud of you all.
I'm proud of us too.
I know, me too. I cry. I cry a lot reading your messages. I really do. Or just like some of the emails.
And it's so weird because I still, I know that I'm a sinner because we all are. And so I just feel like when I pray, I'm like, God, I know I'm so undeserving because I'm a sinner. I know I'm so undeserving. But I don't know why you're blessing me like this, but I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep trying my best to stay humble, trying my best, I'm sorry, I'm crying, to focus on the mission, which is helping people to love in a way that God wants people to love, trying to show up authentic, even if some of that authenticity is still some broken pieces, because nobody ever, healing is just a lifetime journey. It's not like, oh, you've reached the destination.
Right.
Here's your car, here's your report card,
right?
Your certificate of completion.
Yeah.
No, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always going to be a sinner because the only person that wasn't was Jesus.
Yeah. I'm always healing.
I'm always catching and correcting things. Because a lot of earning attachment security is catch and correct. It's not that you get it right the first time. It's how quickly can you recognize that you just did or said something dysfunctional and correct that, repair it, come back, right?
Yep.
That is a lot of what people don't understand about secure attachment. Like, I still have insecure moments with my husband, but I do everything I can to catch it and correct it if it does happen.
Yeah.
And if he happens to catch it first and bring it to my attention, I'm healed enough and mature enough to take accountability and to take the necessary, not get defensive and take the necessary steps to repair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least, if I get a little defensive or something, I'm able to quickly reroute that to I'm feeling misunderstood right now. Instead of no, you're wrong. It's I'm feeling misunderstood right now.
Right.
I understand that your perspective does matter and the way that I have impacted you has hurt you, and I'm here to listen. But I also need you to know that I feel misunderstood.
Yeah.
Right? So we're really good at that, and my husband's really good at that. And we were just talking last night about self-forgiveness because he was like, I created trauma in other people's lives. And like when you talk about your ex, he's like, I wasn't the best husband either. I was blown up in war and I had severe PTSD for some years before I got the right type of help that helped me. He went through a lot of therapy and before he really came back to God. And he's like, so I was insecure, very insecure. Like he was a very raging FA.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a narcissist. He wasn't abusive to anybody, but he's like, yeah, did I raise my voice? Did I maybe manipulate situations? Not consciously, but I wanted to try to get my way or have one up or win the argument.
Right.
Just like the typical FA,
Lots of emotional knee-jerk reactions.
Emotional knee-jerk reactions.
Like I made a lot, like I can look back to, and I made
too.
lots of poor decisions. Lots
of
poor decisions that if anything added to the toxicity level of the relationship.
I could have the biggest trophy in the world that says best poor decision maker.
Same.
I mean, I would like to think that I've redeemed myself from that in the last, 4 years or so, 5 years.
You have, honey.
But God, I was a mess. And so when we were talking about that, he has repented to his ex-wives, even though one of his ex-wives was 5 times worse than him and is a true narcissist. In my personal, not professional opinion, because I can't say it's professionally. That's my opinion. But personal, as a human behavior researcher who has researched and been an expert on narcissism for 20 years, I'm willing to say that one of his exes is a narcissist and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
The other one's fairly cool. And so, you have an FA and a narcissist. Lord help that relationship.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
That was me and my ex, FA, and he was the narc.
Ex.
You were the FA and narc. So you can imagine the toxicity level, right?
Yeah.
And then when you have covert narcissism is completely built around a victim mentality. So when you have someone that is 100% of the time the victim, you can't get anywhere.
Nope.
Because accountability has to happen to have repair.
That's my sister-in-law.
Has to happen to have repair. And there's a large client base that I have, and they're not narcissistic. They just have very insecure attachment that don't know how to take accountability because they have such high shame that accountability and admitting flaws is intolerable to them.
Right. It's very uncomfortable.
Right. And so the piece of self-forgiveness comes in is when you're able to take accountability and say, you know what? I should have known you deeper. To not say it that way, or I should have been more thoughtful, or I was reacting more emotionally and not logically in this situation, and I'm really, I'm really sorry. I see how that hurt you. It's so freaking freeing when you get used to it. In the beginning, especially as an FA, because we hold the wall of pain, like every hurt we hold on really tight to. It's hard, but then when you really get comfortable with admitting it. And you have that self-forgiveness and you have the ability to forgive your partner, the wall of pain comes down.
Little by little.
Little by little. And I still struggle with not wanting to let things go.
Same.
And I have to use my tools that I teach others to catch it, to correct it, to, reframe my thoughts around it, to calm down my nervous system, to get into that internal felt sense of safety, to be like, we're all human here. This is a forgivable offense. And there's nothing my husband has ever done to me that is not easily forgivable.
Right.
He's never really hurt me. I've been really hurt. And that man has never really hurt
Right.
me.
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe in a bad mood, said something that came across a little rude.
Right.
But that's really just about the extent of it. Right.
Yeah.
And so he's so easy to love. He's the easiest person
Josh
to
is
love.
so easygoing too. And Josh will correct himself quicker than anybody I've ever known.
My husband does too.
And I think it's important that that we are that we just wrap up with talking about sometimes you have to forgive and never get an apology.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for the apology to give your forgiveness, then your forgiveness is conditional.
Right.
Right? And Christ's forgiveness is unconditional.
Yeah.
And the only way I was ever, let me try that again, Vandy. The only way I was ever able to forgive was to remember the words of Jesus that one, there's no exception to the rule. No exception. Two, it only hurts you. Staying bitter, usually the person that hurt you doesn't care that they hurt you.
No.
Usually the person that hurt you doesn't care. You know, I mean, sometimes they do, and maybe they apologize, maybe they don't. But the apology shouldn't be what your forgiveness is hinging upon.
Right.
And God says we are separate from our sin. And if you see that if you understand how powerful Satan is, if you understand how powerful his influence is, and how wrapped up and oppressed people can get under Satan's wing, they can do some pretty evil crap.
Oh,
and
sure.
And I just want to spend a little bit of time on here just telling the world a little bit of the good things about my ex, because all they've heard is the abuse.
Yeah.
Right?
You've mentioned some good things.
Yeah. You know, for most of our marriage, he was a really great provider. He was insanely smart, insanely high IQ. He was a very, very talented football player. In fact, he went to the Air Force Academy to play football. Now I think that his addictions that were already starting and sort of having a girlfriend back home, he ended up leaving after basic. Like, I don't know how he got out of it, but he did it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to be a pretty good football player to get recruited by a D1 school.
Yeah.
He was a good time, man. He was a good time if you were partying with him.
All right.
I know he loved his girls.
Yeah, for sure.
In the way that he could,
Yeah.
in the way that he had capacity to. You know, I know there were moments where he did love me and he showed me kindness and love. And that's what made it so hard to leave, is that people that are abusive aren't always abusive all the time.
Sure.
Right? And it's the toxic hope of those times where they're great that make you stay in the cycle.
Yeah.
But I forgive him. He was sick. He, you know, which is really just demonic oppression,
Yeah.
but psychologically ill. A very, very, very addicted. There were so many things I could have done wrong. I could have done better and different in my marriage that I have to take accountability for. I know I hurt him
Yeah,
in a lot of ways too.
for sure.
Be it reactive abuse or not, it doesn't matter. I'm responsible for my behavior. And the best option was always to leave instead of abusing somebody back.
Right.
Right? I mean,
I think what you did just now is really healing. So I want to do it too. I want to say some good things about my ex.
Okay, go
Because
ahead.
there are some good things about him.
okay.
And I think the issue with me in terms of still working on that forgiveness for, towards him is because there's really never been any rehabilitation there.
Right. And he's still alive and in your life and still doing dick things,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, to a certain,
let's be
to a
honest.
certain degree.
To a certain degree, yeah. You've
and
he robbed you of your co-parenting journey, which
he
I think
did. He did.
was probably, I can understand why that's been a hard piece.
It's been very hard. Well, and it's still hard because I see what it does to John Paul, right? Which we've
Of
talked
course.
about.
That's what is hard, is just because of how it hurts your child.
Yes, and but he has some really great qualities too. He was always a really good time. He could meet a friend wherever we went. When we would go and do things, we were always meeting people. He loved to go out and really travel, and he was a fantastic gift giver. He never was short on giving the best gifts. He is smart, and he is a good dad. I mean, even in terms of loving, supporting, wanting his time with his children.
He's always wanted his time.
Always. I mean, that was the issue, right? We fought over time, and we fought over time since John Paul's been little. And it wasn't until a good friend of mine, I was complaining and bitching about him one time, and he just kind of stopped me, and he said, at least he wants to see his son. And I was like, and it was just like this, like, epiphanal moment where I was like, you know what? You're right. It could be worse. He could want nothing to do with this son. But he's always wanted his time with John Paul. And, and there was even something that happened a couple of weeks ago. And JP was kind of upset with his dad. And I just reassured him. I'm like, I said, your dad's, his heart is in the right place. And he loves you so much. And that I know. And
does he always love in the right way?
No.
And can we acknowledge the hurt that sometimes that causes?
Yeah,
sure. And I think you do a good job with JP of really never throwing Paul under the bus, but also teaching JP how to set boundaries in that relationship and to advocate for himself in the relationship when something doesn't feel good or when something feels grossly unfair.
Yeah. And that's what he did. Eventually, he ended up taking up for himself, and I was really proud of him. But I told him, at the same time, you still have to acknowledge and respect your dad. Is he doing everything right? No, but he's right. He was right. His dad was right about what he was doing. He just wasn't doing it right. Right. Which was an issue, that Paul and I had. Like, I can think back on so many things that, a lot of the issues that Paul had with me were completely legitimate. Like, I would go drop like ridiculous amounts of money at Walmart. And he'd be like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I had no explanation for it. And so, of course, it caused problems in our relationship.
Yeah, because it was a coping mechanism.
Right. And he, and I look back at that and I'm like, I think he was trying to help me. He just didn't know how. He didn't know how. So I'll give him that credit. And, because that helps me. Again, it helps me on my forgiveness journey for him.
Yeah. I have really changed a lot of my values. And political stances, values, et cetera, and they used to be opposite of my first husband.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many fights we had about things that I now would have agreed with him with. Right. So I feel like, shoot, dude, I'm sorry about that.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And when I go to the gravesite, which isn't very often anymore, I just say, I'm sorry. For my part in it, bud. I'm so sorry. But I can't keep the blame.
Right.
That he made the choices that he did. I can't live with that guilt. It's not for me to carry. No. I've healed past that.
And I won't carry my
it's so sad
either.
that his life ended at 36.
So young.
So young.
Yeah.
But I also know that sometimes I think God just makes the decision like, man, you're just better off with me.
Yeah.
And so I forgive him wholly, completely, 100% for every negative, hurtful thing he ever did.
And the family, because that's a big piece. Like,
the family has still ongoing issues, which has been very, very tough to navigate.
I've been able to forgive, my ex's family.
And I have to be forgiving as I go.
Yeah, that's a journey.
Like strong boundaries.
Yeah.
Like the strongest boundaries. I've had to have the strongest boundaries in place.
Yeah.
Because things are not easy in that situation.
My ex's family signed affidavits claiming that I put the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of my child in danger. And I had to forgive that. So speaking of forgiving the unforgivable, and
you
I
just
really
have to do it because
there's been repair there though. So that, again, the magic happens in the repair.
Right. It happens because it's repairing within yourself.
Yes.
It's the repair of not only do I forgive this person, but I forgive any part that I may have played in it as well.
Yep.
Of course, there are people that are 100% victimized, but a lot of times in abusive dynamics, there is some accountability that we have to have for staying as long as we did or for reactive abuse or whatever.
Right.
We still take accountability and say, yes, I should have left.
Yep.
Leaving was the answer, and that's not what I did. Right? But we know all of the things that make it really, really hard to leave. So we forgive ourselves because everybody operates to the capacity that they have. Most people do.
Yeah.
It's just that a lot of people haven't realized what their capacity truly is.
That's right.
And haven't done the work to achieve what capacity they could have.
That's what I say.
Right?
People don't realize how powerful.
People don't realize their potential.
You're so powerful. You just don't know it. And if you are looking to forgive the unforgivable,
Yeah.
And
let's work through it.
yeah, and just looking to find more personal power in general. I mean, even if you're looking to leave a situation, because sometimes that is the answer. Please go see Dr. Hensley at her website at thedatingdecoder.com. You can check out all of her services there. Lots of new things are coming down the pipeline that we're super excited about. Again, we want to thank Cozy Earth. Go get your Cozy Earth PJs and all that good stuff. And please, if you are loving this content, first off, we're so grateful. We love you guys so much, and we cannot say that enough how grateful we are. But if you are loving this content, please continue to tune in, listen, like, share, leave a review. And until next time, peace, love, and perspective.